Welcome. I want to take some time and look at God's olive tree. Now this study went about a dozen different directions for me, and I'm going to try to numb this down, but I ended up, it's going to be a two-part video. So you'll hear it, part one, we're going to make a point about Abraham and why Abraham was called and why God chose Abraham as his the person to bless all the world with. And the second part is going to be more present day as to what our relationship is to the Israelites. But I want to talk about our relationship to Israel. And beyond this, I want to talk about us being a wild olive shoot engrafted upon the olive tree of God, which is the Jewish nation. But before we dig into that olive tree, I want to take a look at monotheism, the belief that there is only one God. And why was Abraham chosen by God to be the recipient of all of his blessings? In the ancient world, there are only three known examples of monotheism, because most of the time human beings will relate to the sun, the wind, the water. They'll look at and they'll make gods out of them. And I read recently that it's thought that there are 18,000 examples of some inanimate object that men have decided to worship. 18,000. That's quite a few. So you can see it's kind of rare when we talk about a monotheism. And there are only three examples, and I want to talk about those three today just real briefly. First of all, Abraham, we know he was monotheistic. We'll skip that and we'll come back to him in just a moment. But Zoroastrianism is thought to be about 4,000 years old, but I seriously doubt that it was monotheistic when it first started. It's thought that it began in small tribes, and it may have actually been the forerunner to some Hinduism. But anyway, Zoroastrianism it was the religion of the ancient Persian Empire, and we read about Persia and Cyrus the Great and all of that in our Bibles. But that religion dominated Persia. And the third one is the 18th dynasty of Egypt, and that was called the heretical Pharaoh. We'll take a real brief look at those, and then we're going to pull back and look at Abraham. But in the ancient Persian religion, that was 4,000 years ago, it became monotheistic, it's thought, 1500 BCE, before Common Era. 1500. That is later than when Abraham was espousing his belief in one God. And it existed until Persia was conquered by the Muslims in the 7th century. And the refugees are called Parsis, and they escaped to India. And today there's a practicing group of 100 to 200,000 people worldwide who are followers of Zoroastrianism. The single god of this faith is called Ahura Mazda. Now, does that sound familiar? Mazda. It's the fire god, Mazda. And they chose to name a vehicle, an automobile, after Mazda, and that's where they got it. But monotheism was established by the prophet Zoroaster, and he came from a polytheistic tribe. As we mentioned earlier, they were beginning, and then he was in a rite of purification, and he had a revelation, and that revelation was that there was only a single God, and he became the basis of Zoroastrianism that we see today. Worship was conducted in fire temples. They worshipped a god named Ahura Mazda, and Cyrus the Great was a contemporary of this prophet, if you would. He was a devout believer in what he was taught as this Zoroastrianism religion, and it explains his willingness in the book of Ezra to release the Israelites and let them go back, because they were not trying to force their religion on anybody, and that's one of the tenets of their monotheistic belief. The other one out of Egypt, the 18th century, the 18th dynasty out of Egypt, from the heretical Pharaoh, brought monotheism to Egypt. You recall that Egypt was very well known for polytheism. They believed in the sun, the frogs, the Nile River. They believed gods existed everywhere. But for a very short period of time, there was a god, in their mind, a single god, and the Pharaoh's name was Amenhotep, and it was from 1353 to 1336 BCE, before Common Era. And he introduced Aten, the sun disk, as the god, and he persecuted polytheists, people who believe in multiple gods. He destroyed pagan temples, and he built temples to his one true God in that short period of time. Then he changed his name to Akhenaten, meaning the son of Aten. He's the son of God, if you will. He declared himself to be the one mediator between Aten and men. And after his death, Egypt set out to destroy all signs that he ever existed. They tore down temples, they tore down statues. Sounds like maybe what happened in this country recently, doesn't it? But anyway, that was the second, call it pagan, monotheistic religion I wanted to talk about. And now we want to talk about Abram. Abram, who later became, as you know, Abraham. 1960 to 1785 BCE, before Common Era. He predated these two. He was the son of Terah. He was a descendant of Noah through Shem, and much earlier than the other two examples of monotheism. He lived in the city of Ur, and it was called later, but the scribe did an insert, Ur of the Chaldees, to identify apparently some other Ur that was Ur as the name of the city. And they were the origin, if you would, of the Semitic people. The Jewish people was Chaldean. And the writings, if you will, from the apocalyptic writings of the 2nd century BCE, talks about, here is from the book of Judith. This people, the Jews, is descended from the Chaldeans. At one time they lived in Mesopotamia, because they would not follow the gods of their fathers who were in Chaldea. For they had left the ways of their ancestors, and they worshipped the God of heaven, the God they had come to know. Hence they, the Chaldeans, drove them out of the presence of their gods. And then they fled to Mesopotamia, which is where Haran is, and lived there for a long time. Then their God commanded them to leave the place where they were living and go to the land of Canaan. Abram, the story, it's in Genesis 11, Genesis 12, in that section of your Bible. You read about him, and it begs to ask the question, why did God pick Abram, out of all the people on the earth, to bless him with all of these blessings that we're going to read about in just a minute? And the answer was that he, as a small child, had a relationship with Jehovah God. And he did that by seeing God in nature, and by recognizing him, and he prayed to him as the creator of the universe. Now, if you look at the other two monotheistics, one believed that he was God, the Egyptian, and the Zoroasters believed that a sun disk was God. So inanimate object, a person, and Abraham, who is the creator, believed in the creator God. And the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will bless you." Now, why is he doing that? He's doing that because it appears that Abram had a knowledge of God and a relationship with God as a monotheistic God long before anybody else did. Even his own father is accused of being polytheistic as a matter of convenience. But they were thrown out of Ur of Chaldees. They were living in Haran because it was in Mesopotamia. And then God calls Abram to go to the land of Canaan. But continuing on in that reading of Genesis 12, I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all the peoples of earth will be blessed through you. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, and all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Part 1 of this study is we've placed Abram, later to become Abraham, in Canaan. There's more to the story, though, because he's going to end up in Egypt. He's going to end up doing several more things, but that'll be followed on in part 2. God bless you.